New at 4, police in Bemidji are investigating after 2 girls were approached in a park in what they say was an attempted abduction. It happened just before 6:30 last night at Cameron Park. The girls tell police a young man came up to them and asked them to go into the woods and look at a snake. The girls say they started to walk away, but that's when the boy put his arm around one of them and tried to pick her up. Both girls started to scream, and they say the boy ran away. That suspect is described as light-complected with curly blonde hair. He may be in his late teens or early 20s. He's believed to be between 5'7" and 5'10" with a slim build and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a red and black baseball cap, black sweatshirt with white lettering, blue jeans, and square-toed cowboy boots. If you have any information, you're asked to contact Bemidji Police or Minnesota Crime Stoppers. New information now on a story we first shared yesterday. The woman who was thrown off a motorcycle then hit by another bike has died from her injuries. North Dakota Highway Patrol officials say 2 motorcycles were driving on University Drive south of I-94 last night when the first motorcycle lost control and ended up on its side, throwing the rider off. The second bike then hit the rider and lost control before landing on its side. Authorities say 21-year-old Tessa Holt was taken to the hospital with serious injuries and later died. The 21-year-old man driving the second motorcycle was not hurt. Local law enforcement are looking for people involved in an early morning police chase which spanned all across the metro. Clay County Sheriff Mark Empting says around 3 this morning a deputy tried to pull over a car near Highway 10 and 34th Street in Moorhead, but the driver wouldn't pull over. Moorhead police deployed stop sticks near the Holiday gas station, but the driver dodged them and drove into Fargo. A Fargo officer then also deployed stop sticks. The driver swerved around them for a second time. A Clay County deputy accidentally ran over those stop sticks in his patrol car. The suspect's car was later found in North Fargo, and those suspects are still on the loose. Investigators are on the scene of a crash of several cars of an Amtrak train that derailed. The train hit a dump truck at a public crossing in Missouri. The train was traveling from LA to Chicago this afternoon with 243 passengers on board. There are reports of injuries. We'll continue to keep you updated on this developing story. Summer joins us now with a recap of the confirmed tornadoes from Friday's storm. Summer?
Thank you so much, Stacy, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The tornado tally: 6 confirmed tornadoes by the National Weather Service in Grand Forks from Friday. So I want to walk through and give a brief recap. EF0 in Cavalier County. This was a slow-moving tornado across an open field. In Nelson County near Pekin, another EF0 tornado. It was a brief funnel with swirling dust, also over an open field. Nelson County in the Mackville area, a brief touchdown in Central Hamlin Township. That was an EF0 as well. A 4th EF0, a path of 3 miles near Larimore. The tornado tracked just south of Highway 2. There was some damage to some tree branches. An EF1 in Monoman County, track of 4 miles in the Nadawash area. There were some trees damaged and parts of roofs and shingles torn off of 2 homes. And an EF2 that tracked nearly 31 miles through several campground areas in northwestern Minnesota in Becker and Wadena counties. Thankfully tonight, Stacy, things are a lot quieter. We do have some showers and thunderstorms in the forecast, though, for later this evening. So we'll have that hour-by-hour planner here in just a little bit.
All right. Thanks so much, Summer. A fundraising campaign to help North Dakota's only abortion clinic move across the river to Minnesota has now raised more than $650,000. The Red River Women's Clinic in Fargo is trying to move due to North Dakota's trigger law, which is set to essentially ban abortions after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade Friday. The fundraising goal was initially set for $20,000. Now they're aiming to reach $1 million. The decision to overturn Roe follows nearly a half-century of conflict. There have been relentless efforts by groups on both sides of the issue, which has become a rallying cry for the 2 major political parties. Jan Crawford looks at the history of the law and how we got here.
In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions.
In 1973, Roe v. Wade was a bombshell.
The anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
4 states had only recently passed laws legalizing some form of abortion, while 13 others had begun allowing it with restrictions. By stepping in to make abortion legal nationwide, some justices at the time hoped the decision would end the debate over abortion rights. But the anti-abortion rights movement mobilized almost immediately, beginning first at the grassroots level.
This is the first March for Life, and that was a year exactly after Roe came down.
Exactly.
Jeannie Mancini is president of March for Life.
The march has grown younger and bigger almost every single year.
How important has it been to have that yearly reminder that we're still here?
I can't think of a more symbolic picture of Roe not being settled law than seeing the growing number of marchers.
That social movement became more strategic in 1992. The Supreme Court was poised to overturn Roe by a 5-4 vote until a last-minute switch by Justice Anthony Kennedy.
That was the point where we realized unless we strengthen this political arm at the center of the movement, we will continue to lose.
Within months, Marjorie Dannenfelser founded that political organization, Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America.
Every time there was a devastating blow, the pro-life movement grew. That is the mark of a successful movement.
The next devastating blow came in the 2000s.
I would welcome a circumstance where there was such a consensus in this country that we said we don't want to have abortion in this country at all. But that's not where we are.
When Dannenfelser said Republicans paid lip service to the movement and lost the presidency twice. In 2014, the group helped defeat several pro-abortion rights senators from battleground states, and in 2016 got assurances from Donald Trump.
The justices that I'm going to appoint will be pro-life. They will have a conservative bent.
Activists on the left joined in the fight, arguing abortion bans put lives in danger and pouring millions of dollars into recruiting and supporting candidates. But this court decision has some admitting they've fallen short. President Trump succeeded in nominating 3 to the Supreme Court.
I didn't think it would happen in my lifetime. It's a total historic moment in our country's history. It's not the end.
As for the next step, it'll include taking the fight to state legislatures and also a push for restrictions at the federal level on mail-order abortion pills. Meanwhile, a number of companies have come forward with new benefits for their employees. Companies like Starbucks, Disney, JP Morgan Chase, and Microsoft say they'll cover expenses for workers choosing to travel out of state for abortion services.
For companies who care about issues of diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, they can't sit by and be silent on this issue because it really does impact every aspect of a woman's life.
Some companies have chosen to stay silent on the matter for fear of backlash and legal liability. Legal experts say those who do cover travel expenses for abortion services could be exposed to lawsuits or potential criminal liability. States like Minnesota and California are bracing for the cost of people from other states seeking services there. Demonstrators were back in front of the Supreme Court this morning as groups gather at state houses and clinics all across the country. With some trigger laws not yet in the books, abortion clinics say they'll continue to offer services as long as the law allows. 8 states had laws which banned abortion as soon as the decision was handed down, and more states could soon follow, highlighting what would become a patchwork of state laws. 16 Democratic states and Washington, D.C. have laws that protect abortion rights. According to a new CBS News poll, nearly 60% of Americans surveyed disapprove of the Supreme Court's decision, and 2/3 of women disapprove. The CBS News poll also shows a majority of Americans surveyed say they think it's likely the court will take steps to limit same-sex marriage or access to birth control. The Supreme Court has weighed in on another high-profile case that some say affects religious liberty in the country. It centers around a former Washington State high school football coach who prayed on the 50-yard line after games. CBS News' Skylar Henry has details on the court's decision.
The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of a former high school football coach who sued his Washington State school district, saying it violated his constitutional rights when it told him to stop praying with students after games.
Everybody should be able to practice their faith.
For years, Joe Kennedy would hold a post-game prayer on the field at Bremerton High School with students joining in. But in 2015, after learning of the practice, the district sent a letter saying the activities likely would violate the First Amendment's Establishment Clause and expose the district to significant risk of liability.
The school district here did just the right thing to respect and protect the rights of the kids and their parents.
Writing for the 6-3 majority, Justice Neil Gorsuch stated, "The Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression for religious and non-religious views alike." This latest ruling from the conservative majority court moved the needle further toward expanding individual and corporate religious rights and narrowing the separation between church and state. Kennedy's lawyers argued no students were ever pressured to join him in prayer. And Justice Gorsuch noted in his opinion there was no evidence of coercion in the record. The High Court initially declined to hear Kennedy's case in 2019, before the conservative majority was seated on the bench. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
That former coach is retired and now living in Florida, but prior to the ruling claimed he would return to Washington State if he got his old job back. On the other side of the world, Ukraine is set to receive more military aid from the U.S. The White House plans to send more weapons to the country following an attack on Ukraine's capital, which was struck by Russian missiles. Yesterday in Kyiv, a kindergarten and residential building were hit. 6 people were hurt, including a 7-year-old girl and her mother. Her father did not survive. A mall and other civilian targets have resulted in deaths across Ukraine. President Zelensky again called for more modern defenses from the international community. The G7 committee to help finance Ukraine's immediate needs and plans to rebuild its economy long term. But the leaders acknowledge the conflict between Russia and NATO as the war moves into its 5th month. More than 4 months after she was arrested at a Moscow airport for cannabis possession, American basketball star Brittany Griner appeared in court today. The preliminary hearing was held ahead of her trial. The Phoenix Mercury star, considered in some polls to be the United States' most gifted female athlete, could face 10 years in prison if convicted on charges of large-scale transportation of drugs. Fewer than 1% of defendants in Russian criminal cases are acquitted. Griner was arrested in Moscow less than a week before Russia sent troops into Ukraine. The State Department has now reclassified her as wrongfully detained.